Welcome to Sound Waves, a podcast about the swell of commercial real estate around the Puget Sound. I'm your host, Reed Fetters. We'll be digging into issues including business growth, how and where people are working, what's wrong with Seattle, and why you're even listening to me. To top it off, I'll be throwing something completely random at my guests to see if they can discuss it for 60 seconds. Informational? Maybe. But at least we'll have a lot of fun doing it. So let's get to it. Thanks for joining us on Sound Waves. I'm here with JD Elquist, who is a downtown retail advocate for the Downtown Tacoma Partnership. JD, thanks for joining.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here, Reed.
Oh man,
it's a great intro video, man. I like that.
Did you? I had a young gentleman who's about 13 do it because it took me, I don't know, 7 days of nonstop trying to figure it out, and I think he got a good kick out of that story, and then he turns it around in like 30 minutes, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, I am so out of touch with video technology and everything else, and if you pay attention to my social media, you can probably see it there too. So, but anyway, jumping in, we're both, we both want to bring business to downtown Tacoma, right? You focus on the retail, the first floor, and you blend in up as well. And I focus more on the second floor and up. And we've had so many podcast-worthy conversations about this. And honestly, today I wanted to make it official and have you on the show. So again, thanks for joining, and I'm looking forward to this because, yeah, man, it's I'm gonna cut the cursing down a little bit, and there's no bourbon involved, so I figured we'll probably be closer to the point today.
No, I like it. Let's get to it.
All right, so let's start with your tenure, your relationship with Tacoma. It's a really interesting story, and I feel like it's really impacted and fostered your current role. When I talk to you, I feel like there's a lot of that that has kind of shaped that today. And I just kind of want you to take us down memory lane and just talk about kind of how you arrived here, I believe 11 years ago, and how you got to today. Like, what's that, that 50,000 view look like?
Yeah, man. It starts 11 years ago. I think it was like August or something. I first moved back to the area. I kind of grew up here a little bit as a kid. Key Peninsula, middle school out there, that sort of thing. Found myself in Sacramento, San Francisco, New York City, and then back to the area, but never Tacoma originally. So Tacoma was brand new to me when I discovered it for the first time. The story goes is I was hanging out in Seattle, trying to do, Seattle things, hanging out with Seattle people, and quickly realized that I'm not much of a Seattle guy personally. Gotta love it for what it's worth, but not really my vibe. Caught the bus to come back, so the 594, and got off at the Tacoma Dome station because I didn't realize that the 594 goes to 10th and Commerce in downtown Tacoma, and ended up finding downtown on a particularly very beautiful Sunday afternoon, and went for a walk, man, and found myself walking down Pac Ave and exploring the UW footprint and just kind of hiking around, and made myself down at 10th and Commerce. So I got to really experience downtown Tacoma for myself for the first time ever. And I got to say, man, like that, I still think about that moment because that's when I fell in love with the city. And for me, it was really, truly about the place that is downtown Tacoma. And that's what, gravitated and kind of grabbed my heart and made me realize that I wanted to be involved and be a part of what's happening here in this community. From there, I've been involved with a number of different things, boards and commissions and a number of different businesses, but for me, it's always been about my love and desire to see downtown Tacoma become vibrant and to really step into what's possible for this place. I've owned men's clothing stores and barbershops, and I've been on the Arts Commission and Landmarks Commission and Historical Society Board, and really try to get plugged in. And now all that work and all of that experience kind of teed me up to almost be for me the retail advocate job when I applied for it 3 years ago. Reading that job description, doing the work about retail advocacy in downtown Tacoma, supporting retailers and recruiting new ones. There was no better job in the world for me than that, and that's how I feel today. And I'm very grateful and lucky and excited to do this work for the city I love. It's been far from a perfect journey. I've definitely made my fair share of mistakes, and but today I'm here and we're cooking, and we're good things are on the horizon for downtown.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's funny, your story, my story about the kind of that experience from Seattle to Tacoma is a little closer than I knew. I I when we moved, when we were getting ready to move here, um, there was an opportunity for a job in Seattle and a job in Tacoma, and chose the job in Tacoma. And I was, I don't want to say I was bummed, but I was like, you know what, Tacoma's close enough because I had not spent really any time in Tacoma, and so we came and visited about a month before we moved, and as soon as we got into town, it was July. It was over July 4th, right? It was it was sunny. It was beautiful, and I drove through downtown, and I was kind of looking around, and I was like, "Uh oh," I was like, "I think we just hit the jackpot. Like this is a
Yeah, man.
cool
Yeah,
town."
yeah.
And since then, I fell in love with Tacoma almost right away after that day, and then we moved a month later. So I'm right there with you. Summers will get you. Summers in the Pacific Northwest, they are intoxicating, man. There's no other place in the country I'd rather be than the Pacific Northwest. And like you said, I think Tacoma's on the rise, and I'm so excited to be a part of that, or trying to be a part of that. And that being said, I mean, your role alone with Downtown Tacoma Partnership, it's diverse. You cover a ton of ground. I mean, I'm out driving around or doing my thing, and there's JD, right? All the time, and I love it. I mean, every time I see you, I get excited, and because I know things are happening. If JD's on the street, there's a deal out there being made in my mind. So that's kind of where my head's at. So that being said, can you talk about your role, because it is diverse, right? You do a lot of different things. Talk about kind of those things, what you do. Take us through those categories.
Yeah, for sure. In a nutshell, the job is how do we make downtown Tacoma more vibrant, right? That is the core work that we do as an organization. So, just a quick backstory: Downtown Tacoma Partnership is my employer. It was formed some 34 years ago, I believe now, by downtown property owners to make downtown Tacoma clean, safe, and welcoming. If you're ever in downtown, you will see our guys on the bikes and the street sweeper out in the bright yellow jackets to say, clean team, safe team, doing the hard work that they've been doing for 30 years to make sure that we have a clean and safe downtown first and foremost. I was hired a couple of years ago as the first kind of what I'll characterize as visitor facing employee of our organization, and really focus on the economic development of the ground floor, the retail floor, the downtown core. And what that looks like is me working with property owners, with brokers, and really anybody that I have to kind of help cast a really kind of clear vision for where our retail scene should go in downtown. When I say retail, I mean restaurants, I mean bars, I mean retail shops, I mean personal services, so salons, spas, yoga studios, that sort of thing. Really anything that's visitor facing. I think the really important part about my work is yes, it's about getting deals done, but it's about getting the right deals done, right? The future of our downtown is something that will be determined by which businesses end up on the streets. And we want to make sure that we're recruiting and supporting the businesses that truly represent who we are as a place. We're an extremely diverse city, and have all kinds of different walks of life and point of view and backgrounds, and we want to make sure that when people experience downtown Tacoma, they're really experiencing truly the essence of who we are as a city of Tacoma. And through my work, I'm making sure that the businesses I'm having conversations with look and act and reflect the diversity of our city. So the other part of it is supporting the existing restaurants, retailers, and small businesses on the streetscape through special events. Like we do a holiday event, we do a summer concert series, and also just really going door to door and checking in and trying to show up at least once a week to say what's going on, how's it going, and helping them navigate some of their pain points. We've just went through the pandemic. At one point during that pandemic, I was out cleaning the high touch surface areas in downtown, so doorknobs and parking machines and doing all that kind of thing, just really showing people that I'm here, we're here, we care, and you're not alone in the midst of what we just went through. Right now, it's a lot of coming out of what we just the pandemic and looking to the future and helping people realize what growth looks like. Some businesses are ready to expand and move to new locations, so helping businesses that are existing as well achieve their dreams and what's next for them.
Yeah, and that explains a lot why I see you so much. You're touching, you're touching the city, touching folks, right? You're out there communicating, even if there's not a deal done, you're going and just you're showing your face, and I love that. So I love seeing you out there, and I will say, I have been seeing more and more folks walking around downtown over the last several months, and there's a lot of stuff happening in downtown, and there's a lot of things coming, which is really exciting. Speaking of Tacoma and the city itself, what other cities out there have you visited that you get inspired by, that you bring some of those ideas back here to try to help kind of build with what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, man. The two things that come right off top, I've spent quite a bit of time in Nashville, both, as a retail advocate, and also recently went on a chamber trip out there with the Tacoma Pierce County Chamber of Commerce. That was amazing. I think Nashville is a really interesting story because a lot of people are like, oh, Nashville's this massive city. It's always been fantastic. And, while that might be true, it has not always been Music City. Music City is a relatively new moniker. That kind of foundation of place is something that is definitely in recent history. And when I say recent, I mean 20 plus years ago, right? So not terribly new, but also not like, an antiquity or something, right? Obviously, Nashville's always had a huge music scene, but they realized that they just play to their strengths, and I think there's a lot happening in Nashville that, when it comes to placemaking, when it comes to place identification, that, we could probably be inspired by. The other area I'm really, really inspired by, and again, it is in Seattle, but it's the International District in Seattle. I'm a huge fan of the ID. I've always been a huge fan of the ID. I think the types and diversity of business offerings and the level of creativity and expression and all those things feels very on trend with what I believe Tacoma's about and who we are as a place. So those two things off top. And if you go to International District right now, there's a good mix of what I characterize as kind of regional anchors, but also hyper local, and just again a diversity of food offerings. And you walk down the street, you just hear and see different cultures, and that's what I hope for Tacoma. You know what I mean? I would, I love, say Ballard as much as anybody else, but I prefer to see Tacoma go in the direction of an international district than I would say a Ballard personally.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the types of businesses and shops that we have in downtown.
Yeah, and you touch on a really good point. Like Nashville has a story, right? They've developed that story. It started off in music, and they've moved the needle in different ways. And Nashville, I mean, coming from the East Coast, DC, I have developers that I used to work with that are in Nashville now. Like that's been a big push, right? A lot of just businesses want to be there, and we've talked about this about Tacoma. What is Tacoma's story? And I don't know that we've been able to put our finger on it and tell the story. But to me, like the longer I'm here and the more we talk, I think what's really interesting about Tacoma is that it's authentic and it's about the people here. More so to me, it's like if that concept of being a big fish in a small pond floats around with Tacoma a lot, and whether that people relate with that or not, what I find is that if you want to do something in Tacoma, if you want to start a business, if whatever it is, I think Tacoma is a really good place for that. There's so many entrepreneurs and small businesses in Tacoma that I feel like that's really kind of who Tacoma is, and it's big, and there's just a big artist background, and there's just such a culture and this cool vibe about Tacoma that I can't put my finger on it other than it's the people, right? And we talked about that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, as we do bring more businesses and things down here, one of the things that I think there's been concern about is that when you bring businesses in here, it suggests bringing people. And I don't think that's what's happening or going to happen. I think businesses are going to reach into Tacoma and provide Tacoma jobs, and I think that's what's really cool. And if we start kind of focusing on that, I think you're very selective on who you go after on the retail side, and it's a good fit for Tacoma. And if we keep moving towards that path, I think that there's some really cool things that we can do to Tacoma and build what's already there and just enunciate that, right? So I think that's really cool. And that's where you and I are always just spitballing back and forth, and I love it. I love our conversations. But that being said, that's the first half of the show here. We've got a second half right after what I like to call, we'll go to the video and I'll let it describe itself.
Get ready for 60 seconds of randomness.
All right, we're back. So the deal with 60 seconds of randomness is where I get a chance to get to know you a little bit better, but I also want other people to see a different side of you other than this conversation. So we've got 60 seconds. I'm going to ask 3 questions about the topic that I picked for you specifically that you don't know what it is, which you're not going to have a problem with it. So I'm going to get my phone ready to make sure we hit 60 seconds. If not, you're buying all the drinks for us this Saturday when we go out. So you better not screw this up, man. I'm keeping an eye on this. So the topic is fashion. All right, so here we go. First question. Where did your love for fashion begin? Where did it come from?
Love of fashion comes from my childhood. I was a big costume guy as a kid and wore costumes all the time. And that somehow translated into how I dress.
I did not know that. Oh, man, I love this. I love this segue. Costumes. What was your favorite costume?
What was I think like Peter Pan probably as a little boy. I loved Peter Pan. Yeah, so I wore Peter Pan a lot.
Oh man,
I dressed like a cop a lot too. So yeah,
I think that's hilarious because honestly, man, I don't think you're ever gonna grow up, man. I'm right there with you, so it's very fitting. All right, question 2. What's the one piece that completes the JD look?
My boots.
Those boots are made for walking, man. I hear you. And you know what's funny?
I
had that. We got coffee the other day, and I was not facing the direction you were coming from, and I heard those galloping boots coming in. I was like, I bet that's JD. And I turn around, and all your glory, it was you, man. I gotta be honest, man. I thought you were gonna say your hat, man. I think you're a hat guy. But your boots are another good one, man. I do like it. I do like your hat and your boots. Always, I know. And it's the hat because when I see someone walking down in a cool looking hat, it's like, I know that's JD. Nice. So yeah. All right. And the last question, do you have any tips for me? Like, what could I do to be better? Be honest, man. Yeah, come on, give it to me, man.
You're perfect as you are, my friend.
No, that's
I think legitimately though, you're doing a great job, man. I don't know if I have any tips for you because I think you're really just knocking it home. So keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Yeah. I'll give you a little secret here. You think these headphones are to, so I can hear you better? No, man. My ears just aren't sexy, and I'm self-conscious. And honestly, if I could get bigger headphones, I'd get bigger headphones, but I can't find any. So, the little secret.
Maybe your ears are cold or something,
But it's like it's my ankles, my ears. Those are my 2 weaknesses, man. I'm just like, oh man, I just don't have them, But anyway, yeah. But thanks for playing, man. We went actually 2 minutes there, way plenty. And I knew we would, and you and I could go back, spitball, joke around for hours. So I knew that was gonna be easy. So but anyway, jumping back into the second half of the podcast, I wanted to switch it up a little bit, and these are topics that you and I are always discussing, right? It's the struggles. What are the areas and where can we improve in Tacoma that are causing friction for us right now? And that's kind of where we're going to start. And right off the bat, it's like, what are the struggles that impact your process and your progress that you're doing for your role right now?
Yeah, man. I think it's a couple of things, right? I think the thing that really comes to mind off top is just like what I characterize as process. I'm so thankful that I have a really good working relationship with a number of different folks in a variety of different departments at the city of Tacoma. And I can't just sing their praises enough and how helpful they are in helping me help business navigate the process, right? I will say, I think that process without somebody like me to help a business navigate it is pretty challenging. And there's so much to think about depending on the type of business that you're opening, that if it's your first time doing it or you don't have really, a ton of experience, it's going to be pretty tricky to make sure that you're thinking everything through, if that makes sense. So I just think there's a good opportunity to take the information that businesses need to know in order to open and do business here, and to help maybe repackage some of that information in a way that's going to be wider reaching and a little bit more, like we talk a lot about equity, right? But it's like sometimes I go down the path of, whatever it might be. And unless I'm pretty, much a college educated individual, I'm going to have a hard time really navigating a lot of these processes. So I think there's a way to kind of strip it down and to really help people understand exactly what needs to happen and more importantly, why. I think there's a lot of things that I've noticed where it's like, there's a requirement for something, but not exactly the equivalent of why it needs to happen. I think that when you're asking somebody to, make upgrades to a space or you're doing certain things, we all get life safety, we all get the basics, but beyond those things, just helping people understand why, I think there's a good opportunity for us to grow there. So I'd say in a nutshell is, just being a little bit more open in, our process and really taking the information and making it more wider reaching and more equitable for people to understand, so we can see more types of businesses and more diverse business owners, get involved in the Tacoma economic scene.
I fully agree with that, and that's why I started Tacoma Rising. Like for me, it starts with communication. There are so many things happening in Tacoma, little groups, and they're great groups, but I feel like there's not a lot of talking or communication between all the groups and tying a lot of these things together. I just submitted a permit for 23 new offices for WorkSphere co-working downtown a couple weeks ago, and it got tied up in the permit process. And nothing against the permitting guys. The plan reviewers have been huge help, and they're great. It's just they don't do a lot of office in Tacoma, and they got stuck on something, and I was just kind of like, that's not really what that means. And again, they're doing their jobs, and nothing against them, but it's just there's not a lot of that stuff happening. And I feel like when you get a lot of things moving and people talking about issues going on, everyone learns from each other, right? I did a very similar project in Seattle. Same types of code issues, not a problem. Once I went through it with them and explained it, or the kind of the side of how we were looking at it, it made sense, and we actually just got approved today, and it was done. But It's just one of those that, it's awesome because it's going to bring more opportunity for small businesses, right? Give them a place to work at an affordable cost. And I think the more things we can do like that in Tacoma, it gives people that want to have that entrepreneurial spirit an opportunity. So, which is really great. So. I do see that there are these struggles in communications, and I think the more we do what we're doing, talking, getting it out there, working together, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of things we can do there. And with that being said, do you see any things happening that are improving the struggles? Are there, like with Tacoma Rising, we're trying to do some things. We haven't really gotten into it, but we're just talking about what those issues are. Are you seeing things out there that are improving those struggles? We talked about there's credits, rebates, funds, and things like that are there. Are you seeing things like that more and more happening?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think the really obvious low-reaching one right now is the mayor of Tacoma just announced, the what I characterize as a fund for broken windows. Right, we saw an uptick of property damage, over the past couple of months here, with lots of folks having broken windows, and a lot of folks actually having multiple broken windows, which as a small business owner is extremely frustrating, demoralizing, and expensive. We Downtown Tacoma Partnership was involved in this conversation, and a few other folks were able to have a conversation with the city of Tacoma, and ultimately, the city agreed that the opportunity for us to help to offset some of those costs is necessary. So now there's a fund that I believe applications are available on Monday. I'm not fully flush on the details of this, but what makes me excited is just the fact that the city staff and the folks who are in elected positions saw an opportunity to help, to help small businesses through a very trying time, and they stepped up and they did it, right? So that makes me really excited to be here. And I just got to say too, I know people have all points of view about government and local governments more specifically. And, I think ours is as far from perfect, but I will say if you have a relationship with, folks at the staff level, at the elected level, it's amazing, how much these people actually care about the well-being of our businesses. But I think it's about forming that relationship, right? When they can put a face to a business and understand that there's somebody on the other side of it. It's just really helpful to just humanize the experience, and just humanize the process, because I think sometimes, governments can feel a little bit top down, but I think ours does a really good job of being receptive to people who want to exist like this, kind of as commingled versus, they're here and we're here. But I do think it's a little bit of the responsibility of the business owner as well to take that step forward, right? And what I'll tell you from my experience is you take the step forward, they will take the step forward as well, and then y'all meet in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just been my experience, and seeing the city government step up and help with the window thing is a small example of that. Another small example that I just got to say too is, especially in the midst of what's happening, is building those relationships with your city council members, whoever your elected official is, for your district, for your neighborhood, for where you live, is so important. I have a good relationship with a current, city council member in my district, and had a great relationship with the past one, and we're able to help small business and get things done because of that relationship. And again, Reed, if you've spent any time with me, I'm way more of a relationship guy than I'm a transaction guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think things get done and projects goes more smoothly, and our city's more successful when we operate from that space versus just being sheerly transactional.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And props to the city for the broken glass. I've talked to several landlords over the last several months, and that's one of the number one things. Spending money on things like that take away from them being able to put money back in their building, or they're putting money in their building the wrong way, which I think that's kudos to the city. That's fantastic news. I mean, any of that moving forward is hugely helpful, and I think we can all probably help with it. Everyone has different experiences, right? My experience is in design, construction, businesses. Yours is similar, very retail, getting businesses going here. And there's a lot of knowledge we bring to the table that city officials may not have. And whenever we see an issue, that if we can put something together, a solution that we can hand over to them, I think they're hugely receptive. And sometimes we need to take the ball in our court and say, hey, what can we do to help? And I think that's where these conversations come from, right? When we see there's an issue, what can we do to help? And I think with the city is very receptive to that, and which is huge. That's the first step, right? So that's really great. And then talking about some of those things happening right now, we're actually going to go tour one of these projects today. But there's two new office conversions to multifamily in the heart of CBD on Pack Ave. One is opening soon, called the Astor. Unico Properties bought the Washington building, and we're going to tour that today, which is, I'm so excited to go see it, because we've been talking about it for a couple years. That being said, when these multifamily units open up downtown, and then we've got Hilltop and all around downtown, do you think that they're going to help with the retail in downtown from 9 to 5, or are you concerned with that just with the clientele there, the people living there? Are they going to be driving somewhere else and working today? Or are they going to stay local? Do you think that's going to help downtown retail? I guess is the best question to ask.
Yeah, it's a good question, man. I think that, what I would love to say is yes, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think what it is going to depend on is the way in which we engage the new, residential base moving in or around downtown, and really moving to Tacoma, period. I think in regards to downtown, there's a lot of people who live in the city who do not have a personal relationship with their downtown, the downtown that I work on behalf of. And I think one of the things that we as an organization can do a better job of, and hopefully we as a city and other entities can do a better job of, is building those relationships and going out and actively pursuing the residents of our city and saying, hey, this is your downtown, right? Come here and be a part of it. Come here and enjoy the restaurants. Like, how do we make it better for you? Right. And I think that's going to also be true with this new, all the multifamily coming up, and making sure that we're working with not just the management groups and property owners, but we're also working with the residents, and really trying to reach out to them, build those relationships. And I think that's what it's about. If you want to tap, the 3,000 new units moving here and the people who will be living in those units, it's going to be dependent on how hard you're willing to work, right? A small example is when I was a barber way back in the day. There was, when I was building my business, like I could sit in my shop and I could wait for the business to walk in the door, which doesn't happen. Or I could go out and say, hey, there's people, men, because I was a barber, right? And I cut specifically men's hair. Again, or I'll say short hair, I should say it like that. But there's people with hair walking in front of my business that I'm not, and I'm in here waiting for them to come in. I should go out there and meet them where they're at, right? And offer my services and offer what I do to them. And that seemed to work. I was able to build relationships and get clientele. And I think if businesses tap the growing customer base and growing market here, I think they'll be successful. But I don't think we should be expectant that it's just going to naturally happen.
I totally agree with you, and I think it talks about the same concept with the city. What can we do to meet in the middle? Right? There's opportunity. There's people moving here as a business owner. How do we reach them? How do we get out there?
Yeah.
How do we start connecting folks? And that's a great point. And I do think that if we're mixing a cocktail, we've got all the ingredients, right? They're all coming. Now we just need to figure out how to stir this up and get it going. And I think if we all do that together, businesses, residents, I think there's a lot of really cool things happening that can happen. It's 2022 right now. 8 years from now, obviously we'll be hitting 2030. What do you think Tacoma will look like in 2030?
Man, that's a good question. Um,
Will there be a big bronze statue of you in front of the
no, I
train station?
I hope not. I think that the opposite will happen, right? Is like for me, it's like I'm really excited because sidebar real quick is like so many of my businesses and things that I used to do. My barbershop was like had my name on it, right? JD Elquist hair or whatever, right? And for me, the older I get, the more I realize I don't have any desire to be in that limelight. What I want to do is make sure that I'm using my skill set, using my gifts, and using what I have to just help bring up our city and help bring up our place. When I think about the future of Tacoma, when I think about, 8 years from now, what it looks like, I got to look at businesses like ETC. ETC is a streetwear store in downtown Tacoma, apparel store, but they're culture builders, man. They really, more than anybody I know, just understand the heart and soul of who we are as a place. You know what I mean? When I look to the future, I can see the future in what they're doing. Do I know exactly what that looks like? No, but I think companies like ETC, I think Wooden City does a good job. All these again, there's these folks who are just so community minded, right? I really think that's the future of our place is going to be built on the backs of businesses that care deeply about their place and are willing to put their money where their mouth is and go out and do the work. I think that really for me, when I think about the immediate future of downtown 8 years from now, at the bare minimum, I hope that downtown Tacoma truly reflects the diversity of our place and the types of businesses and the ownership of the businesses that we have in downtown. So as an example, if I'm, I think we're between 11 and 13% Black as a city. 10 to 13% of my businesses in downtown at minimum need to be Black owned. I'm not there. We're not there. And ideally, we're far beyond that number and far superseding that number. So when I look to the future, I think the future of Tacoma is one that reflects the diversity and just the incredible aspect and cultures of our city. Right. So when I walk around, like the food, the sounds, the dialect, the language, I love what the Puyallup people are doing. Are doing with their language program right now, seeing, the Puyallup language integrated in downtown, integrated in our city. That's the future, man. The future is diverse. The future is authentic. The future is just real, and it doesn't get caught up in trying to be something that it's not. What I love about Tacoma is the authenticity of this place. And again, on both ends of the spectrum, right? I've been on every receiving end of that, right? Both the full amount of love and appreciation it can show you and the absolute, get the hell out of here, we don't like you side of it as well, right? And I appreciate every aspect of it because it makes me, it's a real relationship, right? And I'll end with this is if you're in a relationship with a person and the relationship is always good, I have a hard time believing that that's a real relationship, right? A relationship with it's like having a significant other or even a friendship. If you're going to have trials and tribulations and hardships and hurt feelings and frustrations and all those things, and it's part of growing pains. Our city is growing. We are changing. We are evolving. We're moving into the next version of who we are collectively as a place. And I think a lot of what we see in the streets right now is a reflection of that, right? It's a reflection of that growing pain. It's a reflection of, I don't know what to do with this thing, right? An easy example of that is look at the parking situation in downtown. I can't tell you how many times I hear somebody say, the parking, right? The reality is we're growing. You know what I mean? That means more people are coming downtown. More people are on the streets. That's a good positive thing for us, right? We want people. The best part about that too is if you go to Seattle, you go to San Francisco, you go to Portland, you go to LA, you go wherever, parking has been an issue in those cities forever, And the reason being is because they're flourishing and they're vibrant and they're, people are shopping and eating and enjoying. For me who lives downtown, if I go out and I can't find a place to park my car, it's like, yes, it's annoying, but it also makes me happy because that means, somebody's out supporting the businesses that I love. And that makes me just so thrilled.
if parking's a problem, man, the link it's going to be opening up soon, right? It's going to go all the way around that loop. And
also open already for the
Well, it is, yeah, right. It's open already to get through downtown, but it's going to connect all the way around. And all those people living up on Hilltop and Stadium and everything, they're going to have that loop that they can go either way and then get downtown, which I'm stoked about that. I think, you know what? If you're going to go out to eat the bars and things like that, don't drive anyway. Get on the link, right? Take it, it's there.
For sure.
And honestly, JD, for the topic today, I don't think there was any better way to close out our podcast than what you just said. So, so well done, man. Thank you. Thank you for kind of summing it all up. I'm super excited to work with you as we've known each other for 5-6 months now. And, it's just like, I love working with you and talking about this stuff. And I can't wait to keep moving forward and seeing what we can come up together just as friends and doing what we do. There's a lot of overlap. And we have our own companies and do our own things, but I love the collaboration that we've done and the opportunity of doing that down the road. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it, man.
Man.
And for those watching this episode of Sound Waves, thank you. I appreciate you tuning in. We've got more coming. A lot of cool things happening in Tacoma, and we're going to talk about them. So again, JD, man, you're the man. I appreciate you, man. And I'll see you here in a few hours. All right?
All right. Yep. We'll see you later.
All right. See you, man.
Thanks, man.
Sound Waves.